go check the stream, make sure it's
Hello.
echoing.
Echo.
I gotta unmute it. It's
Hello.
echoing. All right, we're good.
Good, all right.
From the industrial wastelands of Michigan to the fruited plains of Iowa, this is the American Greed.
You are the dead. Remain exactly where you are. Make no move until you are ordered.
We burn them to ashes and then burn the ashes. That's our official motto.
Now we can see you. Clasp your hands behind your heads. Stand out in the middle of the room. Stand back to back.
Who can explain the fascination of fire? What draws us to it, whether we're young or old?
Here comes the candles will light you to bed. Here comes a chopper to chop off your head.
And welcome to the American Greed Factory podcast. This is Nathan.
And this is Conlon.
Tonight we have all kinds of exciting stuff to talk about. We're going to do more current events tonight. Watched the new Amazon superhero farce black comedy series, The Bear. And we watched the nostalgia film Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
The latest Quentin Tarantino movie.
His ninth and next to last, supposedly.
Oh, yeah, I know he has some sort of self-imposed limit. I didn't know. Was it 10?
And I think, yeah.
Okay.
But he'll just come out and be like, "You guys are all stupid. I'm not doing that." It means something, you know. So yeah, so that's what we've done this week, and there's always video games and wrestling galore and all kinds of fascinating stuff.
F1 had its best race last week.
Oh, okay, tell me
Germany.
about that.
So remember I was talking about like if it rains, everything becomes even.
Yeah.
So that's exactly what happened. It rained during race day, and like
That's Tara Nebula of F1.
yeah,
Okay. Or Tara Nebula, or how would you say?
yeah, the sensor's offline.
Yeah, no shield.
You gotta think three-dimensionally. I think like 5 of like the drivers who are usually in the points like wrecked out of the race,
Okay.
all at the same corner. Not all at once, but all at various points in the race at the same corner. It was turn 16 in Hockenheim, Germany. Or I'm not sure if that's the name of the city or if that's just the name of the track, but it's Hockenheim. And there's like a drag strip for like drag racing that is like off to the side of the track. And one of the podcasts I was listening to, they surmised that the cars they use in drag racing might be like expelling tons of fuel and petrochemicals on the ground, and maybe it wasn't cleaned up. So like in the rain, they would skid off, and usually like there's you call it runoff area. There's like enough room to like if you fuck up the turn, you can kind of like just like go wide, slow down, and then come back on the track. They would go wide, start sliding. They'd hit this drag strip track, and they could not stop at all. It was just an ice rink.
Oh, okay.
And it threw them right into the wall. And there's also like a gravel pit area too. And if you lost all the momentum and got stuck in the gravel, you can't. There's no way to get the car out. You were just stuck. Your race was done.
Oh, okay.
Because one driver like hit, but like kept momentum, and then just like got out of the gravel. But he had to go back into the pit lane's also right there, and so he like hit the wall and immediately went back into the pit to get a new wing because he fucked up the front wing of his car.
Oh, okay.
And then they had like kind of a funny thing in the pits because they had like a really long pit because they didn't know what. Usually, the pit crew knows what's going to happen, but like he just wrecked, pulled into the pit lane. And it's like, all right, get ready. And then like everybody's confused about what tires to use. They actually grabbed like the teammates' tires.
Uh-oh.
Which I guess that'd probably infer some penalty somehow, because like every race you elect to bring a certain amount of tires, and like that's different for each driver, so there would probably be some penalty incurred. So you have to choose like how many soft, mediums, or hards you want to bring, and so that's different for every driver, and that's for like the entire race. So that means like all those sets of tires are used during qualifying and stuff like that. Because remember, I told you like you have to use a set of tires that you use during qualifying at some point in the race.
Oh, okay.
You also have to at some point make a pit stop and use a different set of tires during the race. So
Just to mix it up.
yeah. I mean, they're trying to ensure that it's the drivers that are driving rather than the cars.
Okay.
Or that you're trying to extend the expertise of the drivers rather than the mechanical advantages of the engineers or whatever. So yeah, a bunch one of the Mercedes guys wrecked out, which Valtteri Bottas, and then afterwards I didn't know, but apparently like his job's on the line, and so wrecking during this race is like, oh, he might not be there next season, even though he's the number 2 driver in the league right now, right behind his teammate, and nobody's won more races than him except for his teammate. Apparently that's how cutthroat Mercedes. Because there's only been So to spoil is Max Verstappen won this race. He's from Red Bull.
Yeah.
So that makes there's only 3 drivers this season that have won races. Both the Mercedes drivers and Max Verstappen. And he's just run 2. So.
Oh, okay.
And then what was the other? So during qualifying, it didn't rain during qualifying, so it was fine. There's Sebastian Vettel. He's the Ferrari driver. I'm not sure if he's the lead Ferrari driver. I think he's supposed to. He's a very, he's like a legend or whatever kind of. He won 4 championships in a row with Red Bull, but now he's with Ferrari. And so his turbo malfunctioned, and he had to quit qualifying, and so that put him in dead last.
Oh, okay.
And so he
race though?
Huh?
They're still in a race though, huh?
Yeah. I think that's like in other races that's a thing. Like you literally have to qualify in order to qualify to get onto the racetrack, but like I that's not necessarily. I guess that's not really a thing here. I mean, maybe that when if they had more cars, but they only have 20, so they're just like you're in last. Because I mean, it used to be like literally a thing. Like qualifying meant like if you didn't qualify to get in the race, you won a race.
Right. Yeah.
But like not here, at least not at the moment. Started from last place and ended up in second place.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, that's really good. And the third place guy was Daniel Kvyat, who he races for Toro Rosso, which that's Red Bull's B team.
Okay.
So they don't have the funding that Red Bull has. They're kind of they're for younger drivers to come up. And I believe Daniel Kvyat was actually a Red Bull driver, and then he had like a terrible year. I think this was him. I believe he had a terrible year, and not a lot of things that just wasn't going his ways. Like it wasn't his fault, but like people like wrecking him out of the race.
Oh, okay.
Stuff like that, or the car breaking down. So they pulled him from Red Bull, and they gave Max Verstappen his racing spot, and then he went back to Toro Rosso. And so this is kind of like vindication for like, no, see, I am a good driver.
Oh, okay.
He also just had a kid the day before, so it was like a really good
that's an inspiring story. Then.
Yeah, and I believe that is the only the second time the Toro Rosso has had a podium. So, and then what else? Yeah, the other Mercedes driver was, I believe he came in dead last after he fucked up his car. So, and then you had, who was after that? You had Lance Stroll, which I made fun of him last week because he was the one who his dad bought a team, and so he's like the rich kid on the team.
Right.
So he came in fourth. So that's good for him.
Yeah.
He can be a competent
I
driver.
have value. I don't have to prove myself to you. I mean, I don't know anything about the guy.
Yeah, I know. He seems like he's Canadian. He seems like a nice guy for a rich kid.
Yeah.
I mean, these are all rich kids.
Yeah.
This high level of a driver.
Yeah.
So there's something I'm not sure about, like Lewis Hamilton's upbringing. I know like Daniel Ricciardo, like they were like kind of middle class people, and they just kind of like, hey, our kid likes racing, and they just kind of like put everything behind them. Where it's like they could have gone bankrupt or whatever doing that, but like it's worked out for them.
Yeah.
But a lot of people are from money. Like Charles Leclerc, he's a what do you say, a Montaguan? He's from Monaco. Yeah, he's a Monaco resident. And so like, he comes from money. Yeah, a lot of them come from money. Anyways, what the fuck was I talking about? Yeah, came in fourth. I forget who came in fifth. I think Carlos Sainz came in fifth. From McLaren. They're doing really good this season. Last season, you can see it in the Drive to Survive thing. They were there's very critical of them because they were kind of seen as a team that had the money to compete but just doesn't.
Okay.
Or they're just poorly managed. So they're like just behind Red Bull this season rather than like near the bottom like they were last season.
Oh, okay.
They have a really interesting. It's like check out like the McLaren headquarters. Like it's a really weird fucking. It's like this half oval office space, and then it has like this like pool that like kind of completes the circle.
Okay.
And it looks really like elaborate and what would you call it? Just rich. Like a lot of money went into that. But then it also serves a function because their wind tunnel's like right underneath that pool, and it cools the wind tunnel.
Oh, wow. Huh. Yeah, that is a pretty weird looking building.
And then
Technology Centre. Oh, no, Center.
and then I can't remember who comes in sixth, but 7th and 8th you got the Alfa Romeos, who have not been doing too hot this season. So they qualified up in the points, so that was good. And then 9th and 10th both Haas's qualified and got points, not qualified. They were up in the points, so that was good for them. And then the stewards were looking at something, and apparently there's some mode that they were using during the start of the race that they determined was mimicking traction control.
Okay.
And were docked 30-second penalties, which immediately put them dead last with before the people that crashed out of the race.
Yeah.
And then you got Haas goes up to 7th and 8th place. You have I guess Lewis Hamilton didn't come in dead last because he came in 9th place, so he got 2 points, even though he's the top driver. He got points anyways. And then Robert Kubica gets 1 point for the Williams team. Their one and only point this season.
Jesus.
uh,
A tough year for them, huh?
Yeah, but I don't know. I just watched the qualifying today, or at least the highlights of it, and things look promising because they just added some new stuff to their cars. They have a new package, and what's his name? Something Russell. He qualified in the top 15, which they have not done at all this year. So that's seen as a good thing because usually they're saying like they're 1 or 2 seconds behind like the last place cars, like place 17th and 18th. They're like 1 or 2 seconds behind them. So now that they have a car that's like getting up with the other guys and not just like hanging out at the back of the race, getting lapped at some point. So it seems promising that they might not come in last place this race.
Huh. Well, that's...
But also to their advantage, like I said before, like they seem to race safe. None of their cars have wrecked this season, and they've brought it home every race. So, these cars cost a lot of money, so they have not spent a lot of money and repairing them this year. So yeah, I've set the highlights link in there. I can check that out and watch the ice rink of F1 cars. And then there's another interesting there's an all women's racing series called W Series.
Okay, I didn't know about that.
They use, so you got Formula 1, you have Formula 2, and you have Formula 3. They used to be called different things. It was like Formula GP2 and like Formula 3000 or something like that. So now they made it more simple and easy to follow.
Okay.
They use Formula 3 spec cars, which are, I don't know how to describe. They're kind of like the older F1 cars, but not necessarily, they don't necessarily look exactly like them. They're just kind of like older specs, cheaper cars, but easier to maintain. A bit more rugged, and you can knock them around, but also not as fast.
Yeah.
But also, like, the thing with this series, something they do is that every driver has a different car for every race. So there's just like a pool of mechanics, and they fix up these cars, and then you're kind of like randomly given a car, and this is to try to equal out like who's the better driver rather than who has the best technology or whatever.
Yeah.
And so they had a race, and then they had another race there like the next day. And it didn't count for points, but it was interesting. It was a reverse grid race. So they took whoever's the top in the points in the standings, they start in last place, and whoever's in last starts in first place. So it's a reverse grid race.
Oh, okay.
I think it's and so the last place is like a Canadian driver. I think she's 19, and I think his name's Sarah Gilkey or something. She wins the race. She's the last place person in the league, but she starts in first and she wins the race. But she barely won the race. She ran by 0.003 of a second.
Jesus.
Yeah, it was head to head right at the end. And it was cool. It was like who she was fighting off. Something Powell. I can't remember her first name. I want to say it's also Sarah Powell, but I just might be fucking that up. And she started in 17th place and like ran her way through the field into second. And like at the last lap, like they go side by side and just like gun it for the finish line and basically hit it at the same exact time, except Sarah beats her by 0.003 of a second. It was just a really cool race. The presentation's not so good because like they don't have a whole lot of money, so there's like fewer cameras, and the commentary is kind of weird. Like there's one of the cameras, it's like inside of they have like these giant lookout towers, and you can tell like the camera's inside there, and there's like a glare or reflection on the window as they shoot out of it. And because they have fewer cameras, there's a lot of just like really long angles.
Yeah.
And we're not like cutting to like somebody tracking an individual car or anything like that. It's just like here's the whole field at this corner, here's the whole field at this corner. So, but it was still a cool race. That's on YouTube because they didn't have points involved with it. They just put that out there for free everywhere.
Oh, okay.
Apparently, you can watch it on Facebook as well, but their YouTube channel is kind of spare.
Oh.
But I guess there's like international rights that get weird.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's racing so far.
Good. Now that resumes again, and
F1 we'll have a race tomorrow, and then we'll start back up in September.
oh, okay.
I don't know where. Probably in like Dubai or something.
Okay.
Or what? Yeah, I don't know.
One of those places.
I can look it up. All the tracks have weird fucking names.
Yeah.
Belgian GP is next.
Oh, okay.
And then you have the Italian Grand Prix, the Singapore, the Russian, the Japanese, the Mexican, the United States, the Brazilian, and the Abu Dhabi GP. United States one is in Austin, Texas.
Oh, okay.
So if I ever went to a race, it'd be there or Canada. I hear Canada always usually has good races because the potential for rain.
Oh, well, yeah. Not a lot of rain in Texas.
And there's there's one corner. It's called, I believe it's. I'm not sure if it's this one or another race, but they call it the Wall of Champions because it's like near the finish line. But there's like a deceptive. It's a very like flat track there, and there's a like a left-hand turn that comes out of there, and it can be deceptive because you can go really fast into that turn, and when you come out of it, you can really easily slide and hit the wall like right at the end there.
Oh, okay. I'll have to keep us posted on what comes next then.
Yeah, whatever. I don't watch it. I've never seen an F1 race. I just I have a podcast I like to listen to, and then the highlight packages are really well done, and the paddock pass stuff where they talk to the drivers and shit.
Yeah, that's an intense kind of racing there.
Yeah. Then I'm not sure what else you want me to hit up.
We could talk about Metro Exodus.
Yeah, it's one of the games from get free right now for Xbox Game Pass. Or I guess not free, but I'm doing the weird fill out a survey and get 100 points, get 8,000 points, and get Game Pass for a month free.
Oh, okay.
Just give them. And you can search, and each search will give you 5 points. So I just literally hit there, hit one, enter, hit one again, enter, and that's all. I don't give them any useful information whatsoever.
It sounds like that Maniac show where you listen to advertisements and.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay. What's that called? Your ad buddy?
Yeah. And I filled a survey, and there's always that thing at the box at the end where it's like, tell us what will make better or whatever, and they want you to write a sentence exclaiming your feelings about something, and I just always write no and hit enter. Here's 100 points.
I like Amazon or some places when I try to support the things I like, and it's write a title, write a body. I used to do the lorem ipsum generator. It would just be random stuff because it's I gave it 5 stars. I'm not going to write a paragraph. You're gonna pay me for it. Right now I'm paying you. This goes in one direction.
So yeah, Metro Exodus was on there, and I was hesitant to get it because I heard not so great things about it.
Okay.
And yeah, there are bad things in the beginning because it's kind of an open world game in the beginning.
Okay.
And it's not a good one.
Oh, okay.
I mean, you get because this is the first time you could go outside in the other games, but it's very limited, and it's you had radiation out there, and eventually, all right, you got to get back in the metro. So this time you're venturing out, and you're on this train, and it was always thought to be believed that this is the only the metro is the only place where humans have survived in the world, and everybody else is dead. And then it starts to be revealed that oh no, people are alive, and there's been around this whole area are radio blockers, and that's why they couldn't get any radio signals in to see if there's life out there. It's because they had all these radio blockers up and around.
Oh, okay.
But then there's the added thing is oh no, we're saving ourselves from the allies. It's just a trick. We have to protect ourselves. If they know we're here and we know they're there, they're gonna kill us. So there's that whole thing where it's is the evil outside world going to come in, and what's the rest of the world like? But so you start to venture across Russia, and you get a lot of different. So the starting area kind of sucks because you're just in the snowy area with a bunch of. You get a boat. There's this weird cult that thinks electricity is evil and worships a mutant catfish.
Okay. Sounds like something going on in Russia right now.
And I don't know, it's not you're not really rewarded for exploring. Like you only get like 3 different items you can pick up, and you just like pick up more of that. It's really easy to fight humans because like they die almost immediately, and then fighting monsters is like not worth it at all.
Huh.
Because like if you kill a human, they might have some bullets on them, not monsters.
Not into bullets, huh?
And if you kill so if you kill a monster, you get nothing from it. There's no resources to get from killing monsters, and they sometimes require more ammo to kill them. So, and they respawn. So it's not like you get a convenience thing like, well, I killed this monster, so now it won't attack me again. Like, no, they're just like it'll respawn and then you'll be back. They do have stuff that's kind of reminiscent of the what they call them in Stalker, not the movie but the video game. It was called like gasoline anomalies, where it's just like these weird electric balls that if you get close to it, they'll just explode.
Oh, all right.
So they brought that here. They come out at night. They're real fucking weird. You have like the thing again where you have to like you have a flashlight, but you have like those little hand charger things you have to get out and like charge your battery back up. But then it gets kind of back into like old Metro. Like the cool thing about the Metro series is like as you traverse the world, you see like these different cultures and how they've survived and like what they do to survive, the apocalypse. Or you get different biomes, like this something completely different. Like right now, I'm in a desert area, and I'm driving around in a car.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, it's pretty neat now, but it takes 2 to 3 hours to get to the neat shit.
Oh, so you gotta chew through the fat gristle to get to the good stuff.
Like the good thing is, by the time I got through that first area, I'd explored everything and got all my equipment like leveled up pretty well. So by the time I hit the good part, like I was like just chewing through all the enemies pretty well and just having a good time exploring the world.
Huh. That looks kind of it. I mean, how's the gameplay and stuff? Is it pretty much the same thing?
It's pretty much the same. There's not the bullet economy like there was in the first game. They got rid of that in the second. I've forgotten most what happened in the second game. I remember the second game being cool, but I've like just completely forgotten it.
Yeah.
But yeah, you just shoot things, you explore the world, you get something that goes on the next thing. But yeah, it's kind of that BioShock thing. It's like it's more about exploring the area and seeing how how people interact rather than the gameplay loop of shooting things.
Oh, okay.
And you got like got some weird guns you can get where you can like put like a 14-inch barrel on a pistol.
Some of the stuff in this game, all this stuff looks like just handmade guns.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's the cool pneumatic ones that basically just shoot ball bearings. And you have to like pump up the gun yourself to keep the pressure high. Because like the interesting thing about that gun, like when you have it at the highest pressure, like you'll like shoot through multiple enemies, but like the more you shoot it, the less pressure it has for each successive shot. So it's an interesting trade-off for that weapon.
Oh, so yeah, so it diminishes in effectiveness.
Yeah. So then you have to like run and hide somewhere and crank the pneumatic pump. And then got a new Wolfenstein expansion pack called Wolfenstein Youngblood.
Oh, okay.
Which is also slightly disappointing. Because there is a story to it, but there's about 2 hours of story, and then really the game is kind of a gameplay loop. You're in France. It takes place in 1980s, and you play as the twin sisters of B.J. Blazkowicz and Anna.
Oh, okay.
And then you have like those special power suits that they got in the first couple of games, and you're looking for B.J. Blazkowicz because he like went missing in France, and so and this is like it's in the 80s, so it's like 20 years, or actually I guess 14 years later. I know 16 years later, yeah. And so like America is freed itself from the Nazi tyranny, but France is still like under Nazi's thumb.
Oh, okay.
So you go there and you just beat the shit out of it. But they changed, so it's more like an RPG where like enemies have levels, and so that's where things get weird because it's like you have to shoot. If you're good at shooting somebody in the head, get ready to shoot them in the head 8 times in a row for them to actually die.
Oh, okay.
And there'll be enemies that are over leveled, and so it's like sometimes it'll be like impossible to kill them, or it'll take like almost all of your ammunition to kill them. So that's kind of a bummer, but that's just kind of the gameplay loop because it's more of an RPG thing where you're upgrading your weapons and stuff. But yeah, it's more enjoyable as a co-op game because that's how it's designed. That's why you have the 2 sisters.
Oh, I see. Okay. Yeah, I'm
And
looking at stuff now about it.
you can throw up like thumbs up and devil horns at each other and give each other like boosts. Like, here's some health. Like, you just gave somebody a thumb up and now they have 50 plus 50 health. That's kind of fun. The characters are kind of interesting because they're weirdly endearing because they're like Beavis and Butthead than just like serious teenage girls killing Nazis. Like, one of the first scenes is one of the girls tries to sneak up and like knife this Nazi, and then like she ends up like kind of fumbling it, and then her sister like ends up blowing the guy's head off with a pistol, like, an excessive detail. And then they're kind of a second where they're distraught by this for a second, and they're like, oh my god, I just killed somebody. And then they're like, woohoo, we killed a Nazi. And then the one girl actually killed the guy, like, throws up and then goes back to celebrating.
Over the shock of this, I'll be like,
So I don't know, like, I really enjoyed that universe. So it's like, hey, I'll kill some future Nazis for a while, and then they have a lot of weird. They have like the Germany's version of VHS was like VHX, and they have cassette tapes, but it has like three whole cassette tapes, which is fucking weird. It's like you have like the normal 2 holes, like you normally does, and then there's like a third one just like up here for no fucking reason.
yeah, it sounds like actually shit that Germans would do.
Yeah, and then they have like they have vaguely like German versions of like 80s songs, and like they're not like German covers of 80s songs. It's kind of like, here's something that vaguely sounds like an 80s song, and then it's like this is supposed to be like the German version of it.
Oh, okay.
I don't think that like they don't. I don't. It would.
Wolfenstein, they did like a German version of House of the Rising Sun, and
Yeah.
So, and then the Pointer Sisters or whatever, they had a German version.
But yeah. Oh, I like it so far, but there are like considerable problems with it. But it's kind of a side thing, and interesting to see if this leads into Wolfenstein 3. Because like one of the things that seems kind of disheartening is they always talk about BJ as being the guy who killed Hitler. It's like, but wait, we didn't get to kill Hitler in number 2. Like, are we gonna skip over that whole thing where we get to kill Hitler? You better let me kill Hitler at some point.
We've been on this journey a long time. At least get to kill Hitler.
But yeah, then like the original Wolfenstein games, there's always stuff where like, you killed Hitler, but here's Mecha Hitler, so they always bring like the head of Hitler back to.
Yeah, Hitler's brain in a jar. Yeah. Well, we watched a TV show. I watched it in its entirety last Saturday or last Sunday, and then throughout the week. But it was only like 8 episodes. But we watched Amazon's. I don't know what you did, like superhero bleak black comedy television series.
Yeah.
The Boys.
The Boys.
Starring Carl Urban and Randy Quaid's son, which I didn't know who that was.
Yeah.
Familiar, and I was like, wait a minute.
Well, I said he looked like a young Rainn Wilson. And
Yeah,
then,
I thought, does this Rainn Wilson have a kid or what is this?
But then when I saw his name was Quaid, I was like, that's too of a weird name to not be a part of the family. And of course, he was part of the family.
And there's a few people in there I recognize.
Well, like I said, the Homelander's the dude from Banshee.
Yeah. Which I didn't know he was Australian.
Is he Australian or New Zealand?
Or maybe it's New Zealand.
Because that was the thing I thought.
Right, New Zealand.
Because I remember they said something about Carl Urban being also from New Zealand, and I just thought he was from Australia. So I guess they're both from New Zealand.
Yeah, they are. I don't know what the difference is there. I'm sure one's an island, one's a really big island.
Yeah, one's a small island.
Yeah, one's a continent island.
And the Flight of the Conchords are from there.
Yes. And the guy who I'm going to probably spend $500 on a model if I'm not on strike. It's from there. Peter Jackson.
Oh yeah, and the Xena Warrior Princess.
Yeah, Lucy Lawless.
Yeah, they shot all those movies there, or TV shows there.
Oh yeah. Well, they have like tax incentives.
Yeah, Lord of the Rings was shot there, but also the Evil Dead series was shot there.
Yeah, which is strange.
Yeah, it's like New Zealand for Detroit.
Yeah. Auckland, Detroit, and for Detroit, it's like okay. And it's a really weird looking place, like in real life. Like you can tell, it's like, oh, this is like Earth from 10,000 years ago. That's why they should have a Lord of the Rings there, because it looks like it's on another planet almost.
Well, yeah, there's like no indigenous animals to New Zealand, so they're only brought like birds get there, but like there's no land animals that are indigenous to New Zealand.
Yeah.
So a lot of like overgrowth or whatever, because there's nothing there to eat it.
Yeah.
And then where it is on the parallel of Earth, it's super windy.
Oh, okay.
So it's like the other feature of New Zealand. It's like wind, yeah, wind and green pastures.
Wind, green pastures, and an overabundance of mice and stuff. There's nothing there to eat them.
Yeah.
Until humans showed up. Did you hear they're airdropping Canadian wolves into Michigan to kill?
No.
That was on my Facebook. There's all kinds of memes of like a cartoon of a moose and then like a wolf with a parachute, and the moose looks up and the wolf looks at the moose, and then the next frame the wolf has a knife coming down, and that's really going on here because you don't want the moose to spread.
Why are they airdropping? Is it like just literally in the middle of the wilderness where there's nowhere to get there? Okay.
And I mean, I don't think they're parachuting him, and I think they're landing planes and like have them in pens.
Oh, okay.
Just throwing them out in a parachute.
Yeah, because I'm just immediately imagining like the Red Alert 2 game, like the Soviet like paratroopers are just tossing them out of the back of an airplane and like.
It could be that weird. Well, the problem is they're Arctic wolves, which are not. That is something in there. Those are much bigger, more aggressive wolves than the gray wolves that inhabited most of what we call America. So you're going to introduce this hyper aggressive species, because if we get moose like where I'm at, Jesus Christ.
Was it just like the traffic concern?
Yeah, that's one of them, and it's a big, powerful, destructive animal too. Because people down here aren't used to that. These dumbasses start shooting at them. There's a moose running down the street, and go outside with like their Caltech 9mm. Hits the moose off. Yeah, they've brought all that stuff here. I mean, well, we had the big controversy like 5 years ago. The state wanted to implement wolf hunts because they were so successful up north that they were, like killing livestock and stuff in the middle of the state. And so they wanted like a wolf hunting season. I mean, it got shot down, but then they threw in this thing like, if they're attacking you, you can legally shoot them now. So it's kind of like, oh, okay. So just we didn't get it one way, we got it the other way. But that's for farmers and shit. I don't know. Around here, it's coyote country.
Yeah.
Coyotes everywhere here. I mean, I've seen them before. Like they just walk down the street and look at you. I'm like, oh, okay. like I said, when I was over shutdown, when I was out in the garage all night painting and stuff, you'd look outside and shit would look back. Some weird crap around, but there's a lot of woods around my house. Not my house directly, but the subdivision I'm in. You drive out there, it's just nothing but woods around us, and you hear them howling all night. The coyotes, I mean. Yeah, that's a weird thing they're doing here. Yeah, let's bring Arctic wolves in to kill the moose. Because if semis start hitting moose on 94, it's going to be a big problem for everyone involved. Anyway,
the boys.
Yeah.
So I found out. So it was actually Simon Pegg plays Huey in the comic book.
Yeah.
Or not plays him, but he is his likeness is used as Huey.
Oh, it's Huey. Okay.
And I think I got confused because Simon Pegg does the foreword to that comic, at least that first one I read.
Okay.
And so I assumed in that book that he was just Simon. Like, I thought that was the thing. Like, oh man, Simon Pegg's girlfriend got annihilated by a superhero. Isn't that crazy? I thought, because like I said, I only read that first issue, so I didn't get to the rest of it. And there's a weird thing with Butcher, where like the first time you see him, so like the CIA lady.
Yeah.
Like, there's like the weird fucking relationship between them where he like basically comes to the office, wants some files. He fucks her in the ass, like consensually.
Yeah.
Oddly, yeah. And then just walks out of there while she's crying, but like oddly satisfied. It's like, yeah, a woman didn't write this. At least I don't think so.
No.
So she's treated with a lot more respect in this show. And that's when I looked at like who wrote most of these episodes. And there's a lot of women writers who wrote these episodes. And the showrunner is Eric Kripke, and he's the Supernatural guy.
Oh, okay.
So this is him coming off that one. I can't remember the show, what it was called, but he did another show for NBC where like all the power goes out one day, and then like it's like how people survive and like what happened.
Lies type stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or kind of like Jericho. Remember Jericho? That was a cool like first like 3 episodes.
Yeah, that was like half a good TV series.
And then it just immediately canceled. Maybe it got 2 seasons, but yeah, I remember.
It ran out of gas.
Yeah, really quick.
It's like, ooh, what does this mean? It's like, oh, okay, yeah, the right wing evil people EMP'd us or whatever. Yeah, always what happens.
So yeah, like I think a lot of his trademarks. So one kind has that kind of bleach bypass kind of look for this show, which like he did that for Supernatural.
Yeah.
Here it's all kind of digital. It's just kind of like dark, kind of looking color palette to the show.
Right.
And then a lot of like 70s rock. So that's kind of like his touchstones.
Right. Yeah, I noticed a lot of that.
It's like, oh yeah, this is Eric Kripke. The first episode was directed by, and directors in TV shows aren't necessarily like they are in movies, but it's still somewhat important. But Dan Trachtenberg,
okay,
he directed the second, 10 Cloverfield Lane.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, the first episode just jumps right in. It's like it's horrifying violence and weird.
Yeah, it's like this is what a superhero can do to a person. It's like, oh Jesus Christ.
Yeah, that was horrifying. And then when Starlight like shows up at the headquarters and talking to the Deep, and then she's like, "Oh, I was always your biggest fan." And the next thing you know, he's like got his dick out.
Yeah.
Like, just okay. I mean, I guess these superheroes are supposed to be disreputable, but that's like.
But yeah, that's like the first turn where it's like, oh, they're superheroes. Like, oh, they're malicious, evil people.
There's people with power that use it against others, and then she forces him to give her she has to give him a blowjob.
Yeah.
And then it's like, whoa, wow. We're just jumping right in with everything.
Yeah, because she's just a kindly person from Des Moines, Iowa, who's like helping stop street crime, and now she's getting called up to the big and she doesn't want to ruin her position, or and like her mom's really like what would you say? Very pushy about her being a superhero.
Yeah, she's this.
Living vicariously through her daughter.
Yeah, she's the tiger mom type, or not? Well, yeah, kind of an American version of that, where it's like, yeah, my whole life is her, and I live through her. And then there's like, as you go on to the shows, there's one thing I noticed in this. It's like, because Starlight is she's ultimately like the decent superhero.
Yeah,
she's an evil person, but I like how they portray. I like how people from the Midwest have become stand-ins for Southerners. People from the Midwest are like super religious, and they believe because the superheroes have some convention with like some kind of actual straight up Christian rock like overtones and stuff. It's like, yeah, I don't know about all that. I mean, that's something that would go on in the South, but I don't think you can say that about Southerners anymore because a lot of them are actually stupid. So it's like the Midwesterners have filled in the role, and there is a lot of that in the Midwest too. But
oh yeah, I mean those concerts happen.
Yeah,
I've never been to one, but like, it's like
I don't hang out with people. Invite me.
But then you find out, like, is Christian rock a thing? It's like, oh yeah, very successful. Like, people or failed bands just put Jesus in all their music, and suddenly they're huge stars.
Yeah, South Park had a whole episode about that.
Yeah.
It's like, how much money do you make? Oh, a bunch, because you have a built-in audience that like has to buy this shit because they can't listen to like real music. But it's actually true. But yeah, that was. Yeah,
because like it's interesting how they find a lot of different ways to just like avenues of hypocrisy for superheroes.
Yeah. Well, a lot of it's really like on the nose too, like especially some of the stuff with Homelander. It's like, oh, he's just like some Republican archetype.
Yeah.
Because some of the stuff he says, like calling non-superheroes mud people and shit like that, like, well, that's straight out of like alt-right racist. Like that's like a.
Well, he also just has a god complex because
yeah,
essentially nothing can stop him, and he doesn't see people as, it's just a charade for him. Like there seems no purpose for him to actually save people because he feels he's above it. But in this instance, because he's like kind of a stand-in for Superman and Captain America, he's not from another planet, so like this is his world essentially, but he just feels he needs to be above everyone else.
Yeah, and I mean, initially, and he is a complete sociopath in real life, and there's only two people who know that: the lady who plays Queen Maeve, who's Wonder Woman, essentially.
Yeah.
And then the executive lady.
Yeah.
What's her name? Can't think of her name. I don't know.
Let's see. It's she
Ashley Barrett.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I was thinking of the.
Wait, no. That's Starlight's agent. I don't know who she is. She's like in the show a lot.
Yeah, she's she was in Back to the Future and shit like that.
But. Yeah, I recognized her. Can't think of her name.
It plays a really fucking weird.
Elizabeth Shue.
Yeah.
The actress. What's her name? Stillwell, I think.
Yeah, Madeline Stillwell.
And it was weird that the guy I will always remember from Breaking Bad is like has a cameo as the actual president of the company.
Yeah.
The party. But
what's that? Was it Vought? Is that the name of the company?
Vought, yeah.
Okay.
Which is a takeoff of I forget which one of the mercenary companies. It's kind of close to that. Like, because that's what they are. The structure of this universe, watch the show, is superheroes are employed by a giant U.S. corporation that is essentially, they were law enforcement. Now they're trying to break into military.
Yeah. And apparently there's whole, like, international accords. Like, no, you can't let superheroes in the military. Right.
Because then you just defeat entire armies.
Yeah. It was like one of the concepts of the Watchmen. They had that in too. Like, but I can't remember. Did it work out in Watchmen? Did America just walk over Vietnam because they had superheroes? I can't remember that.
Well, in Watchmen, there was only one superhero.
Yeah.
Which was Dr. Manhattan. Everyone else was just like a super athlete fighter, but they were essentially mortal. But yes, America won Vietnam because Dr. Manhattan just walked ahead giant and destroyed the VC with his death, powers where he just blow people apart. So yeah, that was this is kind of like I see this as like a kind of a fuck you to superhero movies and sort of an homage to Watchmen.
Yeah.
With
Well,
a
yeah, it's coming around at the right time.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. Again, the public is ready for this. But like I said, a lot of it is there's things I really liked about it, but then there's things about it where it's like, oh, I see why they threw the comedy aspect into this, because Carl Urban just chews the scenery all the time as Billy Butcher, to the point where it's almost ridiculous. It's like, oh, what extreme crazy thing is this guy gonna do next? And he seems really over the top sometimes.
Yeah, and he's essentially just a con man who's like,
Yeah,
he's a special forces guy who's like become a con man.
yeah, and he has this weird Mary Poppins accent, which I thought at first is like, oh, is that a put on? Is that part of his like act? Like he's going to be a man of no nationality or something? Like, why does he have this weird accent? And it's like, oh no, that's how his character's written. Okay. And then, the two standouts or the three standouts in this are, Carl Urban, of course, is the main, the big actor in this. But then the guy who plays Homelander, who actually develops a lot as a character, as kind of a flat character. You think, oh, this guy's just a surrogate superhero, Superman type. But he is, why is this thing going off? He is.
You said something close to Syrian, I think.
Oh, okay, that's weird. Don't do that. I know
Don't say surrogate again.
Yeah, I know you're listening to me all the time, creepy thing, but don't interrupt me. It's like, oh, you just think that, well, this guy's just your static evil character, but then it's like, oh no, he was kind of made this way, like, because he was, because that thing about human contact and raising, because it kind of goes back a little bit to when he was a baby, and it's like, yeah, he was just raised in a lab, and he really didn't have a lot of human contact, probably because he was dangerous to be around as a baby, and how that woman always manipulates him with her boobs and stuff.
Yeah,
just will give him, like, hug him and stuff, and he's like, oh yes, he was that is true. That will happen to people if they don't have mothers hold them and have contact with people. They'll grow up to be, they won't have superpowers and shoot people with laser eyes, but they'll grow up to be pretty dissociated, weird people. So it's almost like, yeah, Homelander's smart enough to probably know he's evil, but was he, is he a victim or a villain? What is he? Because he seems to have he doesn't have any physical weaknesses, like you can't kill him, but psychologically he seems kind of fragile.
Yeah,
in certain ways. And then
I always like the dissonance that happens. There's that part where he, like, they basically let him in the military, and that the special forces are like gonna raid that house or whatever, and he just goes in there and eviscerates everybody in the place.
Yeah.
Just lasers them in half, and then walks out and is like, "Hey, got it, guys!" and like big thumbs up and a smile.
I always like the shit he says to, remember, you're the real heroes, and then just go kill people, most horrendous ways possible.
Or like the first scene.
You can't believe the best scene with Billy Butcher is when they find out that the superheroes are made by drugs that they inject into children, and that's where all the superpowers come from.
Yeah.
And then Vaught's behind it, and they go to the one hospital, and they find a baby with laser eyes. Like, I've never seen a scene that weird where they're being attacked by guys with, like, machine guns, and they find this baby in an incubator, and they know it has laser eyes, or, and so he just picks up this baby and holds it towards gun, waves it around while it shoots its eyes at people, and the baby lives.
Yeah.
But puts it back in the crib. He's like, if you fuck this up, I'm gonna come back later and kill you. But I've never seen a scene that weird. Like, I rewatched that. It's like, did they just? Yeah, they just did that. Okay. That's some of the stuff I like about this show. Is the really like, oh yeah, they're gonna do that. And the sex in this is like, it's kind of a little over the top sometimes. It's almost like, oh, do we need this? I guess we do.
I can't think of. I mean, there's the one with Starlight and Huey, but then there's like that one in the first thing where it's just like a superhero sex club.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I guess there's that part where like the one chick is like fingering the gills of the deep.
Yeah. There's a lot of stuff like that in it, you know.
There's a lot of that stuff in the comic book too. Like the
Yes.
comic book's probably like more brutal and gruesome than this, but this
Right.
is still like on a level of like gruesome and terrifying.
It's not what you're expecting, kind
No.
of.
But also like this like I said, watching trailers for the new Watchmen series, like I think this is more palatable than what that seemed like it's gonna be.
Yeah,
Like that's gonna be like more serious than I probably want.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
No, we'll have to. I mean, I'll give it a look. I mean, I love the Watchmen movie.
Yeah.
Zack Snyder did, so I'll give that a look. I don't know, because that was really not funny at all, but it was cool.
No, but that was like the way that movie basically looked cool.
Yeah,
That was kind of the thing about it. It was kind of like a modern day Blade Runner. Like the story follows a blueprint, but really it's how it looked that really sold everything about it.
yeah. It's a
And
cool
the indie made more sense than the comic book, but
Yeah, it actually did. The comic book was like, huh? Okay.
but of course Alan Moore hated it.
Well, Alan
'Cause-
Moore hates himself.
Yeah. I mean, like,
The only thing Alan Moore loves is his snake god.
well, I remember, like, people like that movie, but you can obviously see where people like say it's like just crass commercialization of a story. But then also people really liked the V for Vendetta, like with how they did that movie. It's like, no, it's crap, and it's like, why? It's like because someone made money off of my thing.
Yeah, both fine movies. Just
So if someone just like spends $300 million to make one of his stories and just like puts it out for free so it doesn't make any money, then he might consider it being an effort towards his story. But no.
you gotta love those angry old British communists. Good comic. Some of the few comic books I've ever read have been Alan Moore ones, and I had no idea what Watchmen was until someone gave me the comic book like 10 years before the movie came out, and I was reading this. I was like, "Oh, this is crazy! Who wrote this?"
Well, I mean, that was, a few years after the comic book code where you couldn't really tell dark stories.
Yeah,
That was like one of the first ones. People attribute like it was that and like what Batman Year One or something like that. I think it's Year One. I can't remember the.
I know he did some Batman.
Well, he did the Killing Joke was the one that he did,
Yeah,
but there was what was his name? Something Miller.
George
Like-
Miller.
He did like the Sin City stuff,
Yeah, I think that's George Miller.
but
Turned out to be a real the opposite of Alan Moore,
yeah.
a complete right winger. Like, no, really? Okay.
But yeah, those people are attributed. But like, I don't know. But also, if you look at the time, it's mostly because like these are things meant for children, but now they're telling adult stories, and that's like where it blows your mind. Really, is like that initial thing. But then if you look like at manga or anime at the same time, like they're already doing that shit.
Yeah, they were a little ahead of the curve.
But it had to be translated. So
Yeah.
so yeah, what else to say about the boys? Yeah, I don't have too much to. Like I said, I only read the first series of the comic books. I don't have enough knowledge to compare them. Well, I hear what's it, Translucent? Like I hear that's a complete that was completely created for this.
Oh, okay.
And I don't. There's something I don't understand. Like, is every superhero like essentially have that like carbon skin? Because that part at the end where like Starlight, she's like powerful because she has like these, bright light things that she can like throw out. but Billy like shoots her with like a 50 cal BMG, and she's like, okay, she's knocked down, but okay. I was like, does every superhero have just like impenetrable skin?
I don't quite understand the mechanisms because the way I like this compound 5 or whatever they give them, it has different effects.
Yeah,
And but I didn't know that like immortality or immunity to gunfire was. It's not said that it's part of it, but you don't see a lot of people doing direct gunfire against the people, except the ones like Homelander and Queen Maeve. Like they take gunfire directly, and it just bounces off of them.
yeah.
But I didn't know that all of them, if they all had that ability, or and it's not really spelled out.
No.
I think it's just kind of like a thing to move the story.
And there was
knock the superhero down. Not necessarily bulletproof, but we don't want to kill her. It's like, just hit her with a 50, and that'll knock her out, so you can get away from it.
yeah.
Um,
Well, they had the whole like experimentation with translucent, where like they're trying to drill a hole in his skin and do all this other stuff. It's like, oh, we put a bomb up his ass, that'll work.
yeah, yeah. That whole first 3 episodes was just like full of. It's just like, oh, this is dark and weird, and sort of lets off that accelerator a little bit, and then comes right back to it.
Yeah.
Which was good because it was getting to the point you're like, oh shit, the superheroes around. What horrible thing am I gonna see?
Yeah, because there's like a weird tension because like you kind of cut between, the boys doing their thing, but you realize like but there's kind of there's mismanagement as like translucent has disappeared, and like there's like don't worry about it. He goes on a bender. Because, like, this company's used to just covering for these superheroes doing terrible things, and then just like, we'll cover it up. And that's, like, the whole point of the series is, like, the A-Train kills Huey's girlfriend, and he's kind of, like, on the warpath for vengeance. Or not necessarily vengeance, but, like, some sort of resolution.
Yeah.
But Butcher, he's definitely out for vengeance. Like, he's, like, it's humans versus soups. Like, that's in his mind, that's the war that needs to go on.
Right.
What was I talking about?
Don't remember.
Oh, well, one thing I want to bring. There was an interesting thing in the pilot where, like Butcher is like talking to Huey about like all the weird shit all the superheroes are up to, and he's like, even Homelander's like, no, he's squeaky clean. I wonder if like that was like the pilot, and they just kind of like didn't know where they're going with it, or if he wanted to like say he wanted to keep people away from Homelander so he could get revenge himself on Homelander.
Yeah, I don't know. That was. I mean, there is sort of a weird.
Because also that like serves for tension of that episode, because like Homelander up to that point like seems squeaky clean, and then at the end of it he's like murdering innocent people on an airplane.
Yeah. Yeah, and they shoot those scenes effectively because you just see a guy and then his eyes start glowing, because they always do that almost in the dark with him. So it's frightening and strange because nothing looks more evil than that. Some guy whose eyes start glowing.
And then you get some other evil stuff with him in another airplane where like they go to save an airplane, and then there's no pilots because he accidentally like fucks up the control panels, shooting the guy with those laser eyes, and like and Maeve's on there, but she can't fly, and he's telling everybody like, it's gonna be okay, and he's just trying to drag Maeve out of there so they can leave, and then like she wants to take some people with him. It's like, no, we can't save some people, like the publicity will be bad, everybody has to die for publicity.
Yeah. And then there's those little kids like begging him, and he's like, come on, we gotta go. He's annoyed with the whole thing. Like, come on, get through your catharsis. We gotta go, And it's this guy's.
Because he only respects like Maeve's life because she's also a superhero and like is worthy of of his attention or whatever. And they also used to be a thing, but she appears to be a lesbian or at least bisexual in some way. But
yeah, well, I mean, if that was your male relationship was. Probably be like, maybe I'm gonna stick with this lesbian thing because this is what men are like. And then we have I like how the Haley Joel Osment, like shows up in this as the mind reader.
Yeah.
And that was a dark scene at the end where, because he basically betrays them all because he's trying to get back in the good graces of Vought and have a real job. And Carl Urban just basically smashes his skull in on a sink. The scary thing was when he grabs a hold of Carl Urban, like he starts screaming, no, I have a child, please. And what's he freaked out about? And then he just basically crushes this guy's skull. And like, oh, wow, that's fucking... There's no likable characters here except maybe Huey.
Yeah. Well, Huey and Starlight.
And Starlight. Well, yeah, Starlight seems to be like, yeah, so far so good, but I was like, oh, this could really go dark because she found out her whole life's a lie.
Yeah.
She was in that kind of that quasi-religious stuff, and her mom told her, like, God made you this way. And it's like, oh, no, actually, when you were a kid, we turned you over for experiment. And then what was the other thing? Oh, the first evil superhero, the Middle Eastern guy.
Yeah.
I like how his power is he just goes into a room and ostensibly explodes and then walks out. And I didn't miss the irony of like, that's the Arab evil superhero is Suicide Man, but he blows everyone else up. Like, huh, okay. Again, a little on the nose, but all right.
But yeah, this comic book is from Garth Ennis, who did Preacher. So if you ever read the Preacher comic books or seen the show,
Yes,
this will be in line with that. Of
yeah,
here's dark stuff, but also humor thrown in and just lots of weird shit. But I thought this was pretty well done.
yeah, I enjoyed it. Again, I thought a little too much up front and obvious sometimes, and I almost think the dark humor tag on it is an excuse. It's actually really kind of serious and violent and just mean.
Yeah.
Just throw some humor in there. You're like, well, this kind of lightens it up a little bit, but no, actually, the arc of the story, it's like, oh, this is just terrifying.
And also, I think it's slightly toned down from the comic book.
Yeah, probably. I've never read the comic book, but yeah.
I just hear there's so many visceral things. Well, so there's that moment where the doctor's telling the story about the illegitimate child that Homelander has.
Butcher's wife, yeah.
And the baby eviscerated her and drowned in the blood.
Yeah.
So in the comic book, that's essentially the story that happens, except Butcher's there when that happens and ends up having to fight the baby and kill the baby.
Oh, Jesus, okay. So that's what the laser eye baby was, sort of a stand-in for that, maybe?
Yeah.
Do a funny baby scene, just not that one.
But also clearly his wife died, where it's like, spoilers here.
Yeah.
She's alive at the end, and I don't know where they're going. It seems, that'd be incredibly confusing and deflating for Butcher, because that's his entire purpose. But they already got a second season before it even premiered, so I'm really, really eager to see that.
I'll tune into this. Oh, one more question. Elizabeth Shue's baby, did it die in the explosion? Because Homelander just set it on the couch.
Yeah.
He's like, what's the baby follow-up? What happened with the baby on the couch when the 100 pounds of plastic explosives they had that woman wrapped in went off?
Yeah.
Assuming it probably died knowing this show, but
yeah.
That was one of my first questions about, oh, that's weird. Wait, what happened to
Well,
that
being that he only cared for her and the baby was a nuisance, and then he fucking kills her. Yeah. I imagine he doesn't give a shit about the baby, but
yeah, I mean, he's an evil man, but there's evil and then there's evil. Capital E evil.
And I like that there's one guy just named Black Noir, and he never talks. He's just essentially their Batman.
Yeah.
Well, there's another character in the comic books who I saw some stuff about him. He's not. I don't think he's here. He might have been mentioned. He's
Lamplighter.
Well, there's that one, but then there's Tech Knight.
Oh, okay. I don't remember that.
Tech Knight is essentially Batman. He's in the comic book. He gets a brain tumor, and he starts to go crazy and wants to have sex with everything. and like he ends up saving Earth from an asteroid because he thinks the asteroid looks like a pussy, and he goes to fuck the asteroid and saves Earth and dies fucking the asteroid.
Okay, that's weird.
So I don't think that's gonna be in this version, but
Well, yeah.
that was in the comic book. Because I do like how, because every time I see stuff from the boys, it's always like, you know, Butcher and Huey doing something in like just in like a, you know, like a dilapidated factory somewhere. But then you cut out to the wide world where it's like, here's all the superhero shit going on. I always kind of like that, like, you know, like the intense focus, and then like here's the wide world stuff, like how they jump between that stuff. I think that's done pretty well here. Because like something like Watchmen is pretty much just all wide world stuff. You don't really get a lot of like down to earth things or narrowed focus and character interactions.
Yeah.
I mean, you do a little bit, but like not. The stuff with the boys, like they're just human. And there's the stuff with what's her name? I can't remember. Probably talked over her stuff, but she's the one female of the group.
Oh. Yeah, the Asian lady.
Well, I guess in the comic book she doesn't have a name. She's just called the female or something like that. But
Okay.
they give her a name at the end of this series.
Yeah, what do they call her?
Well, I can't, did they give her
Or
Huh?
Kim
Kimiko?
Miko.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can't remember. Is the thing with her is that like she wasn't from birth given the compound V or whatever. She was given
that
as
happened in, like a early adulthood,
okay.
I think. Yeah.
Because I don't know if that was like something different now, where it's like, okay, now you can just give anybody super powers. It doesn't have to be a baby. I don't know if there was a.
Oh, because
distinct-
Homelander told the one, because he's the one who created the evil guy in the middle.
Oh, right, that's right.
He said, yeah, it was a super nasty mess finding all these people to give it to before we had some successes. But
Okay, yeah.
And now we have evil superheroes, superpowers, and we can go for sequel after sequel after sequel. Just kisses him deeply, like, thank you.
That's another weird thing. So you have these people actually being superheroes, but like this company also creates like movies based on the superheroes that they star in, or
Yeah.
digitally and put them in somehow. So yeah, that's weird.
Yeah, it's it's a strange.
But that's the whole like, you know, Amazon versus Disney. I'm not sure if that was in the comic book or something that came up for the show.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, they're trying to. I think they're trying to say a lot of things.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, this is interesting, but it's sometimes the show can be so shocking. It's like, oh, wait a minute. Yeah, I guess that is in there, isn't it? But anyway, The Boys, Amazon Prime, check it out. It's worth watching.
I don't know. It's only 8 episodes, so.
Yeah, I mean, I knocked it out basically on a Sunday and a Wednesday. So,
But you know, be prepared to be shocked.
yeah, be prepared to. And it's not the kind of shocking you're expecting sometimes. It's a lot of weird sex and horrifying violence and
And like weirdly specific violence.
very specific violence. Yeah.
Yeah, so we can want to roll into
Yes.
Quentin Tarantino's Once Upon a Time
Yeah,
in
I
Hollywood.
watched this today about 6 hours ago. So, and it was
So I don't think there's almost. So should we say spoilers up front? Because I think there's almost no way we can talk about this movie without talking about the ending.
yeah, everything we talk about is spoilers. So
Okay, so if you think you want to see this movie, so like to me, I think what makes this movie is like the last scene of this movie.
yeah.
So if you want to see this, like stop listening now and go watch the movie.
Mom, Dad, go watch this movie before you listen to our talk about it. Well, actually, there's a lot I liked about this movie. My son saw it with me,
Okay.
which was interesting to take a 17-year-old to see a movie essentially set in a time like 5 years before I was born. But you know, with some of the, but also my son's a little more in tune with like, you know, he knows who the Manson family was and what they did, and
I don't know, like I know vaguely about it. I've never like gotten into the specifics of it because like I didn't know there was like the other people. I thought just Sharon Tate was killed. I didn't know there was other people killed.
no, yeah, Wojciech Witowski and Abigail Folger and her boyfriend, who I can't remember his name,
Is that the Siegel guy or whatever?
hairdresser, yeah, Civil or something. I mean, we'll probably find it in our data here. But yeah, no, that, and it was horrifying deaths too. It wasn't like we're just gonna show up and shoot you in the face, because
Yeah, because they had knives, right?
yeah, they had knives and a gun, but it was like a 22 pistol, like revolver. And Sharon Tate was like 7 or 8 months pregnant.
Yeah.
Essentially stabbed the pregnant woman in the belly. I don't know. I mean, I could get there's autopsy reports you can read. It's just horrible shit to do to people that are essentially defenseless against what you're doing. And it's for and it's not for robbery or a crime motive. It's for the acid fueled ravings of a madman about wanting to start a race war because something on a Beatles album. Yeah, it's so anyway, this movie's set in 1969, which and it's also a Quentin Tarantino movie, so it's a love letter to. He has this encyclopedic knowledge of like Hollywood film and TV that goes back to the 50s and even earlier. So this is a lot of like his stuff.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot of love letters.
Yeah, it's like
So
I like character actors.
Yeah, it's a love letter to character actors.
I want to chronicle kind of their struggles and on. I like the 60s and the 70s, and I like music from that era. And you know, I mean, it's just Quentin Tarantino is like just a madman, and then I want to make a film that looks like it was shot and made in the 60s, and he did. I don't know where they got all those cars.
You know, people, just restore cars.
Yeah. Well, that Cadillac he was driving specifically, those were horribly expensive back then. Those were like Rolls Royce prices almost. They were really, really, really expensive cars, and there are not many examples of them left. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure that they always have a few of them around.
But I think a lot of stuff was practical. I don't think they green screened a whole lot of stuff, so that probably added to expense because apparently this movie costs $100 million, but doesn't really feel it. But also Brad Pitt and Leonardo DiCaprio probably cost $20 million.
I think they work for scale in this. Well, I'll just say one thing about the car. When you rewatch this movie, because I'm sure we'll both buy it and have it at home, is when what's that girl's name? Pussy. That was what they called her.
Yeah, I think it's Pussycat, but yeah.
Yeah. Okay. When she leans into the car, and they just show a picture of Brad Pitt's face and her ass. Remember that scene?
Yeah.
Okay. When she first jumps in, the door handle of the car almost falls off. And you can see like under his steering wheel and stuff, all the paint's worn off. Like there was little things I was noticing. It's like, oh yeah, okay, they must have like refurbished that car out of somewhere. Because those are some of those cars like on Jay Leno's Garage. He has cars like that, and I weirdly connected with it immediately. I was like, that was one of those cars where they say, oh yeah, if you want to keep one of these running, you need a guy. Because these cars had weird stuff like hydraulic ride suspension using 60s technology, which was like just almost like homebrew automaking, where it's like, well, we're only going to make a few of these cars that'll have this, or a few thousand. And, so, but anyway, that's my weird things I noticed.
Well, I just remember there was like a shot where you have like this long stretch of road, and like you see like buses and stuff from the 60s, and like, well, if that's not visual effects, that's probably a lot of money and time to do all that shit. Even though John Dykstra was the visual effects supervisor on this.
Yeah. Well, some of those buildings and stuff I think were screened in.
Yeah.
But I think they did that after they shot the movie.
But like I think the only obvious effects in the movie is like when they inserted like Leonardo DiCaprio into
The Great Escape.
Yeah, The Great Escape.
Yeah. Yeah. And those yeah. There was a lot of stuff like, and I've never been to Hollywood, you know, and I'm not some expert on the history of it, but a lot of that stuff they had in the movies, like, oh yeah, that's familiar, and just the feel of the movie,
Yeah.
it had kind of a grainy feel of what everything looked like at that time. They did a really good
I
job.
mean,
with-
there's like a lot of shots that are just kind of meandering. It's like, here's 5 minutes of them driving around in a car. Yeah, because I say it. I wrote some notes a little bit here, but it's yeah. There's a lot of meandering things. Like, it doesn't feel its length, but it still does feel like a long movie.
yes.
Because like the Red Letter Media guys had a thing on this, and I immediately just kind of went and watched the movie so I could watch that, like their reaction.
Well, they've already done one on this.
Yeah,
Okay, I'm gonna have to watch that. See what they think.
yeah. But yeah, they said like it doesn't feel that long. It's like no, it feels like a 2 hour and 45-minute movie. But like I said, maybe it doesn't feel that long, but it's still like you look at the runtime for this movie and it's like, oh shit, this is gonna eat away. It's gonna eat away. But you know, it's essentially worth it. Cause like I felt like this movie didn't work till the end. It's like, what are all these desperate elements? What are they leading to? And then like at the end, it kind of like all made sense, and suddenly like, cause like it's like we have, you know, a whole like 10-minute scene where Brad Pitt's listening to fuck, what's his name? Bruce Lee. Like,
Oh,
talk about like how he can like fight Cassius Clay, and then they get in a fight, and then like they kind of go even on a match. Although it seemed that Brad Pitt got the best of him because he threw him into a fucking car and dented the shit out of it. But then Bruce Lee pops up and like seemingly just like cracks a bone back in place. It's like, all right, let's really fight.
yeah, that was. Yeah, there was a lot of. It took a lot of space with everything in this movie. It kind of made sense. It's a lot of it did, like with the Sharon Tate character. Like they just showed her driving around. They sort of connected her to the Manson family because she gave Pussycat a ride, and in her car, and then she went and saw one of her own movies.
Yeah, which I don't know, like, what was that about? Because a reading where it's like, is she being narcissistic or? But also, there's this part where, like, throughout the movie, it basically just shows like how everyone loves Sharon Tate,
Yeah,
and like the weird thing where she was dating that one guy, and then ends up she was gonna get married to him, but then she leaves him for Roman Polanski. They get married, but then he's like hanging around still, like just like it's like
yeah. She was going to marry that guy until she did a movie with Roman Polanski.
yeah.
Then she married Roman Polanski, but that guy was kind of, because the guy playing Steve McQueen, I always think of him as the guy from Homeland.
Yeah.
The guy you don't know is British, but he is.
Yeah.
Because he always plays Americans, but then you hear him do a talk in an interview.
Oh yeah, it was in Band of Brothers and stuff like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, it's like you see that guy everywhere, and it's like he's just waiting for him to fuck it up because you know he's going to fuck it up, and then he'll be there to swoop in and take her. And he was kind of lamenting, like, you know, Sharon Tate really likes young, kind of thin, you know, wafy guys. He goes, I never stood a chance. Weird exposition at the Playboy Ranch with it's the guy playing Steve McQueen.
But yeah, then they like, you know, she goes and watches the movie, and like they cut to her scenes, and it's just Sharon Tate in the movie. They didn't like put Margot Robbie in place of or anything like that for Wrecking Crew. And then, you know, she's like kind of waiting for the reactions and then smiling when everybody like loves her scenes or whatever. But there's also a read on it where it's like at that point, it's like Margot Robbie is like, it's like you, the audience, and Margot Robbie are enjoying Sharon Tate. Like
Yeah.
at that moment, it's not really like Margot Robbie playing Sharon Tate. It's like we're all enjoying Sharon Tate as she was.
Oh, okay. But she seemed relaxed, like she was just sitting there with her feet on the chair and just watching
Yeah.
them and laugh at it and kind of waiting for everyone's reaction. And,
Yeah, it's like, does this work? And she gets in the movie for free. It's like, I'm in the movie.
yeah, it was a kind of again, it was just a lot of like, let's make this scene last longer than.
And then you're wondering, like, what does this have to do with the rest of the movie? Because the movie does like it's not real plot heavy. It's just kind of it's a Tarantino movie, so it's like a sequence of scenes. Like here's the best scene in the world, but we just like cut from sequence to sequence, and we're not really involving the plot whatsoever.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. It's like, which way is this gonna go? And
But you know, it's like a bunch of because like you think of like the scenes where, you know, he's shooting the TV show, and it's like, does that necessarily like add anything? But like, no, it's character development though, because like the whole thing with Leonardo DiCaprio's character is like he's basically an actor who doesn't believe himself anymore,
yeah,
and then, you know, he does, but he like you know. He'll go and do these roles, and then people are like really surprised at how good he is. And like, I don't know, that show was necessarily like, oh, look at this wonderful performance. But like, when you imagine like, okay, this is a 1 episode turn where he's gonna die at the end of the episode. This is an interesting take on like a bad guy character for a show where this is the only role he's gonna have in this show. Like, but like as it is isolated, like, is that a really great performance? Like, it's fine.
yeah. It's
But then, like, I guess the other red letter media thing I was going to bring up is, like, they, you know, obviously, like, compare this to, like, modern day movies and how everything's superhero movies. But then I had kind of like maybe a slightly different take where it's like, I'm not sure if this is, like, intentional for Tarantino, but, you know, this deals with a lot of Westerns. Because Western were, like, the dominant movie for, like, 30 years in Hollywood.
right.
Like, if you wanted to get a movie made, it had to be a Western. And then they start making, like, weird offshoots of Westerns just to, like, you know, oh, you want to make a serious drama? Well, then it's got to take place in the West. And it's like, you know, we're going to do, like, High Noon. That was less a Western, more of just, like, this more concept piece. But then, like, but it has to be shot as a Western because then you can sell it to people and stuff like that.
Yeah, get people in there.
So I wonder if there was like something there was like, yes, today is dominated by superhero movies and stuff, but like this is no different than when Hollywood was dominated by Western movies and things like that. And the only way to get a movie was if it had something to do with a Western. But they also, like, back in the day, they used to make way more movies than they do now. So.
Oh yeah, well you could crank them out. You know, the bar wasn't set too high.
No.
I mean, because they had TV shows and stuff on here, like, I'd heard of these, but it's like, well, I haven't seen many of these, and it's like, yeah, there's a reason why. But that was more of his filmmaking stuff. Still there?
Oh yeah, I'm just looking at my notes.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say I can't. I'm looking at stuff about this movie too.
Oh, and yeah, because it kind of meanders around, like it builds this tension because you know at some point the Manson family murders has to happen,
Right.
and like a lot of this movie was sold as like a murder mystery. Like when you hear like early things about it, it seemed like this was going to be like a murder mystery detective thing, and then like you're like 2 hours into the movie, it's like, well, obviously that's not happening.
Right.
Like Leonardo DiCaprio's character is reluctantly going to go shoot Italian action movies, and he's like, this is the end of the career.
Yeah, there was kind of. I actually thought there would be a little more about it, but then taking in the whole movie, it's like, oh, okay, I understand why. But it was still, yeah, I thought this was going to be almost a theatrical documentary about the Manson murders.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, I knew that wasn't what it was because it came out like last week. So it's, I didn't read a lot about it because I didn't want to spoil it too much before I watched it. But yeah, it's I mean, it's really interesting how they did it. Like I said, the look of the movie is amazing. And then both of the main characters are good. Like Brad Pitt, I like. I mean, that guy's essentially a psycho, but he's but he's loyal to certain people.
Well, that was the one thing because I was looking for the tension to build, and there's that one part where he takes Pussycat to the was it Spall Ranch?
Spawn Ranch.
Spawn
yeah.
Ranch. And there's the point where he gets out of the car, but she doesn't. And like they've already established that he probably killed his wife,
Yeah.
but they don't show it. You just imagine like, oh, he accidentally shot or intentionally shot her with a spear gun.
Right. Which is a weird death.
And so there was like a moment of tension because like, he gets out of the car, but she doesn't. It's like, did he kill her and then just like come to this ranch? It's like, is he the killer for at some point? But then like that doesn't happen, and then you know.
Something else weird happens, but not that.
Yeah. Yeah, Dakota Fanning, and I didn't even recognize her.
Yeah, she looked really different.
I mean, she's been in stuff recently, like, but she had a different look for this movie, more serious, I guess. I don't know.
Like she was Squeaky Fromm.
Yeah. Bunch of people's kids. Uma Thurman's kid was in this. Kevin Smith's kid was in this.
Which one was she?
She was just one of the. Well, Uma Thurman's kid. She was the one that like said, "Oh, I forgot the knife in the car," and then she just runs off.
Oh yeah, she was from that girl from Stranger Things,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I was like, wait a minute.
And then Harley Quinn Smith. She was just one of the Manson family. She was like one of the gang that was digging in the trash, getting food.
Oh, okay.
She was just kind of in the background. And I guess at some point, Luke Perry's son was in there. He's a wrestler named Jungle Boy right now. I can't remember his actual name, but I know him as Jungle Boy. Because yeah, this was Luke Perry's last movie.
Oh yeah, that's right.
There's like a big billboard in Hollywood that has him on it as his character in this. And then Jungle Boy went and climbed the poster and like kind of got a photo on there, like because he knew it wasn't going to be there that long. It was his last thing with his dad.
So
yeah.
anyway, the end of the movie
Thing that brings it all together.
ties it all up.
Yeah, because that's I don't know, because they get back from Italy and I can't remember his character's name. Was it Dalton?
Yeah, Rick Dalton.
He now has an Italian wife. He kind of assumes that this is the end of his career, and so he's going to sell the house and they're going to live somewhere else. And he doesn't have enough. He just, you know, he's like, I'm not going to have money to employ Cliff anymore.
Right.
So they're all going to get like really hammered and enjoy the last time before this all ends. And then while doing that, the Manson family shows up and they're hanging out in their shitty like taxi or whatever,
Yeah.
and it's making noise. And then Dalton runs out and tells them to fuck off. And then,
Dirty hippies are coming back.
and then
Yeah. Rick Dalton's kind of an amalgamation of all the hard-ass cowboy actors.
yeah,
Some parts of his life, like kind of like John Wayne and maybe, who's the other guy? Like Clint Eastwood, but not as good an actor. But yeah, he's sort of-
well, I think somebody summarized him as a wannabe Steve McQueen. Like that's why they show him in The Great Escape and stuff.
right. But yeah, he's kind of one of those guys from that era. Today you would call them Republicans.
So yeah, they like go down the hill and decide like that they're gonna kill the guy from what's it called, Bounty something. What was it? Is it just Bounty Hunter or is it something else? Something Bounty.
Oh, Bounty Law.
Yeah, Bounty Law. Yeah, that was the TV show he was in, and they say like, yeah, we grew up on violence, and now we're gonna bring the violence back to him. So, and then that's when they go and try to attack, like Rick's house. Like Cliff is in there, and he smoked an LSD cigarette, so he's not in top form. But he has an attack pit bull with him. Just gave it a walk.
He feeds it food. It's called Wolf's Tooth.
Yeah.
And it's like it says some logo on the top of it. Like, was it food for angry dogs? Crazy shit.
I think one of them is raccoon flavored.
One of them's rat. One of them's raccoon flavored. Yeah. A very scary looking giant pit bull too. But it's just like, oh, this thing's evil.
And so yeah, the Manson family shows up and tries to kill Cliff.
Yeah.
And then that's when we get the uncomfortable and weirdly funny violence in a Quentin Tarantino movie.
Quentin Tarantino movie violence.
Yeah, he just sicks the dog on like the one guy, and then he's like beating the shit out of the one woman, and his Italian wife comes out. Rick's in like the pool, like just getting drunk.
Yeah, he's got headphones on.
And his Italian wife comes out and she gets a kick in and like runs off to the bedroom. And that's Dakota Fanning. That's where Squeaky, she's the one with the knife. Or I guess they both have knives, or two of them do, and one guy has a gun.
Yeah.
And then she ends up stabbing Brad Pitt, who then beats her head into a pulp. And then there's the third girl. Then the dog gets sicked on the other girl. I forget what happens to the guy. Like, how does he end up dying?
Brad Pitt like crushed. I think she kicks his head in.
Okay.
That dog fucks him up for a while. I think he just like puts his head on concrete and just stomps on it. Breaks.
And then the one girl's getting mauled by the dog and just screaming and then she eventually gets hold of a gun, but she's like blinded by blood and just starts shooting the gun randomly, and then like runs outside, breaks through a window, and then ends up in the pool screaming and bleeding and shooting the gun in the air. And Dalton's like, what the fuck? And he disappears. And then he comes back with a flamethrower, the same flamethrower he was in he's in like a exploitation World War II movie or something. Yeah. And then just flamethrowers her to death
in a pool.
In a pool.
Which is weird. I like how and that's the only because Brad Pitt's his stuntman.
Yeah.
He does all the dangerous work, but there was an exposition scene early in the movie where he talks about how I actually used that flamethrower. It took me 3 weeks to learn how to use it. And they showed him using it, and he was like, God damn, that's hot. And the guy's like, yeah, it's a fucking flamethrower. And you see when he needs Cliff to fix his antenna, like he goes to the tool shed and like, oh, there's a flamethrower sitting there. So I knew right then. It's like, oh, this is coming back later.
So then the cops, this is kind of an aftermath. They ship Cliff off to the hospital, and then
he essentially got stabbed in the hip.
Yeah. And the dog's watching Rick's wife, and then was it the hair guy or whatever? He's like at the gate at the Tate or at the Polanski gate or whatever, and he starts talking. He's like, what's going on? And I was like, oh, a bunch of fucking hippies tried to murder us. And it's like, what happened? And it's like, I ended up killing this girl with a flamethrower. He's like, holy shit, you just killed someone? He's like, yeah. And he basically ends up getting like invited up to the Tate house or up to Sharon Tate and stuff like that. And you just can see what the future unfolds from here is that like he becomes friend with them, and then like Roman Polanski puts him in one of his film, and like he becomes like this great actor once again, or is seen as a good actor as like Al Pacino sees him earlier in this movie, because Al Pacino is a big proponent of him because he keeps watching his stuff, but also he uses that to downsell him stuff where he's like, they're just using your clout to like raise up their stars, like you're not going anywhere. It's like, once you start doing these Italian movies.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's like, okay, like Sharon Tate lives, like all these other people live, like maybe Roman Polanski doesn't force himself on young girls, like you just, and then like it just pops up on the screen like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and it's this weirdly happy ending.
Yeah, it's weirdly happy, but because I watched a lot of the credits, not because I was.
I was walking out. I missed there's like a mid-credit scene. Is he just hawking cigarettes or something?
Yeah, something like that.
Okay, I was walking out of the theater and I heard something come back. It's like, are they doing an end credit sequence. Like, oh well, just keep walking.
It was what's his name with an eye patch on. Let me find my wallet. It's the one that says "bad motherfucker." But no, I mean my take on the end, because I felt like, oh, okay, there's something to this. Is like that music was almost melancholy instead of happy, and I thought it was kind of saying it's like, yeah, this never happened. No, these two guys didn't exist, and all these people, they died horribly.
Yeah.
And essentially the bad guy won, or the bad people won that night, in real life. And then I don't know if there's implications for the future. It's like, well, does this make the Manson family like actually get their shit together and do something even worse because this was such a failure? You never know. Is this going to be like that Stephen King book where Kennedy doesn't get assassinated and the world falls apart because Sharon Tate and her friends weren't murdered? And also, this is like this has been a trend with Quentin Tarantino, because we had Django Unchained, where we're going to right the wrongs of slavery in a gunfight at the end of a movie, and then Inglourious Bastards, where Hitler gets shot to pieces, essentially.
Yeah.
And all the Nazi hierarchy burns up in a movie theater. Like, that's revisionist. That didn't happen. But those were like kind of like, oh, these are the Hollywood endings, actually, that they actually shoot. And so, but this movie, it seemed like there were different implications. Maybe it's like, yeah, the Manson family didn't kill the Tate, Folger, and the other people, but an era still ended regardless.
Yeah.
Because a lot of like the literature about the Manson family murders in Hollywood and everything, because it involved all those things coming together, this was essentially the end of that era of Hollywood that this movie was shot in, and the end of the 60s. Like all the hippie movement and all the change in the war protests and all that stuff, it ended with the Manson family murders. There was no more innocence in that, because the 70s got really weird, violent, and cynical. So there's a lot of different ways to look at it. I don't know if any of that's true or not. It's just kind of things I was thinking, because this was such a love letter to that era in Hollywood. It's like, oh, it still ended, but it just didn't end on such a gruesome note.
But also, like, this is a very patient movie from Quentin Tarantino. He's not trying to necessarily be cool the whole time. Like, this reminded me a lot of Killing of a Chinese Bookie more than like Pulp Fiction or anything like that.
Yeah, it wasn't really hip. Like, it was story driven.
And just, here's long extended scenes, like, just all about character development and less about plot.
Yeah. I like how who's doing the narration?
Kurt Russell.
Kurt Russell is the narrator again.
Because I don't know, the end like really made this movie for me, because like I was like, like 2 hours in, I was like, I don't know about this movie. Like, am I enjoying this? I don't know. Like, I'm enjoying some of it, but I don't know where this is going. And then like the end just kind of like, it has like a bunch of callbacks and things like seem to like come together all at the end.
Yeah, it's kind of like a culmination, especially of like, well, who is this Brad Pitt character, and what does he mean? And it's like, oh, okay, he's like he's just one of those guys, sort of like the hitman and No Country for Old Men. It's like, it's just like this unstoppable murder machine when you piss him off, or try to kill him. Actually, not piss him off, try to kill him.
Oh, he's a war hero,
Yeah, because he had scars all over his body.
Well, that's probably from stunt work too. So.
Well, yeah, that could have been. I didn't really. I mean, they didn't really. There wasn't much to him, and nor did he reveal much about himself.
No.
He's kind of like, I'm happy to be your gopher. I don't care. I live in a weird trailer behind a drive-in theater. And eat macaroni and cheese.
Yeah, he kind of just leaves a sad life, but he doesn't seem to be troubled by it. It's like, I'm living.
Yeah, and I can like drink with my friends all the time and smoke like crazy and still have this physique somehow. Look at this.
And Leonardo, and in some ways, like, because Leonardo DiCaprio has to kind of essentially pretend to be the man that's like Brad Pitt is, because he's like way more sensitive and stuff, and like he starts crying, and Brad Pitt's like, "Hey, put on these sunglasses. Don't let people see you crying." Yeah. Like, he's way more of a sensitive person, and just kind of pathetic, and like throughout the movie he just kind of like slowly gets his shit together, but like he still doesn't believe in himself until the
Yeah.
end of the movie where he flame throws a girl in the pool and oh cool, I'm gonna hang out with Roman Polanski's wife.
After essentially incinerating someone, he like gets his mojo back. Takes his killing. Not that he was unjustified, and but when you run and get a flamethrower, you're kind of crossing some Rubicon between self-protection and just wanton killing. But it's a movie.
But like my imagination immediately like, carried forward like what were the things that would happen after this, and like I said, like it's like, oh, he ends up in a Roman Polanski movie, but also like he has to like go on like fucking the Tonight Show and explain how like I flamethrowered some girl to death and she was like trying to kill his wife and his friend and stuff like that. And they have a weird friendship because it seems to be like they're not necessarily friends, they're like co-workers, but like it just works out for them.
Yeah, because when they describe it on the plane ride back, it's like best friends, confidants, but Cliff was something more than a friend, but less than a wife or something. Weird commentary there about men and friendship, and
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, it's Quentin Tarantino, so I'm sure it's his movies are kind of like Kubrick movies. Like there's so many things you could just drill in on one point, and
And whether they're intended to be there or not, who knows?
goes.
I mean, you assume because Quentin Tarantino was probably meant to be there, but also, who knows?
Well, he likes to fuck with people too.
Yeah.
Was there any controversial interviews with him before this movie? I hadn't.
Yes, there's I forget, it was some panel where some woman was talking, and I think she was addressing Sharon Tate. She was addressing Margot Robbie and about her playing Sharon Tate and not having a whole lot of dialogue, and basically like that's eliminating her voice from the world, and how come like that, and then like he's like, I reject your hypothesis.
Oh, so it was someone trying to do clickbait SJW
yeah.
journalism shit. Okay, yeah. I know there's always something with him. Every movie.
When you watch that Red Letter Media thing, they'll show the clip. So.
Oh, okay. I'll have to check that out. I didn't know if there. I mean, there's usually one because journalists, they just think they can fuck with this guy. It's like, no, you can't. He's got an IQ off the charts, a perfect memory, and he doesn't like you. So good luck.
I think this was started being made under the Weinstein Company, but then he sold it to Sony. So
yeah, he would sell it to. What was his deal? Because he definitely didn't want to be associated with the Weinstein.
Yeah.
Or Weinstein. They're both not bad. I don't know if they're both bad. The one is. I know that for sure.
Well, I just mean as there's the Weinstein Company as the people who would have produced and released this, and now it's Sony.
Yeah. So he definitely didn't want. I noticed that right away. I was like, hey, where's the Weinstein logo? Oh yeah.
Yeah, they use like an old the old Columbia TriStar logo. Well, I guess not TriStar, just Columbia.
Yeah.
From that era, so that was neat.
His only condition, I think, on this, I believe I read, was like every Tarantino movie, it's like I get the final edit.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't go before committee, and there were a couple suitors. I think there was some competition.
Well, yeah, like everybody was trying to get it, but
yeah, but everyone didn't want to guarantee everything. It's like,
yeah.
I don't know why you.
Sony probably just gave him more money. Because usually that seemed like a Warner Brother thing to do. It's like, oh, here's an avant-garde director. Let's give him $300 million.
See what happens. Want David Lynch to direct the next superhero movie for $50 million.
Well, yeah, Warner Brother, they have a, I don't know, because like they give what's his name from like Interstellar or Dark Knight and stuff like that.
Oh, Nolan?
Yeah, Nolan. Like, I mean, yeah, he'll direct a Batman movie, but then they'll let him make Interstellar and what was the last one he did? The war movie.
Oh, Dunkirk.
Like, these original movies that cost hundreds of millions of dollars, and like, here you go, and they do it. So they kind of like cater to directors kind of like make original movies, but they also have poor superhero movies in the background. But Warner Brothers usually seems like the people, or Warner Brothers would seem more likely to attract Tarantino. But I don't actually work on that stuff, so Tarantino knows all about that shit from the inside. So who knows?
Yeah.
Or maybe Sony just gave him a lot of money, and then that was the deal.
Well, yeah, I mean, can't really go wrong with him. I don't know how much money he'll make, but everything will be well regarded.
Yeah.
So.
But yeah, most movie studios don't care. I mean, just look at Fox. Like, Fox hasn't made a good movie for like years, but those movies make money. So who gives a shit, I guess. Here's Swim Fan 39. And we gave Roland Emmerich some disaster porn to put out.
Yeah, what's an interesting movie trailer I saw? Oh, you seen the trailer for that movie 1917?
Yeah.
World War One. That looks interesting.
Yeah, kind of. It looks Dunkirk-esque.
Yeah.
And just how it's shot.
Yeah, it's very unusual looking movie. There's not a lot of movies about World War One.
No, because it's not really.
Well, we didn't storm the beaches, It's
It's not action. It's not action packed, and when it is, there's just lots of people dying senselessly.
Yeah.
But look at that Battlefield 1 game. It's like, yeah, you can basically take all the technology from World War 1 and make an action movie.
Sex it up.
But this seems almost like, Saving Private Ryan-esque, where it's like, hey, do you want your brother to die? Well, go deliver this message not to attack. And then adventure.
Adventure
No, this doesn't remind me of the life and times of Colonel Blimp. This seems way different.
Yeah. Where's the glory and the humor? But anyway, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Check it out.
You should have seen it by now. It's your own fault.
Yeah, it's been out.
Well, I just mean, because we spoiled it. But.
We just talked about it. It's a cinematic experience. You should have.
Well, I mean the whole thing where like Sharon Tate doesn't die, and that seems to be like the big thing.
Well, that's been like I said, that's a trend with his.
Yeah, I mean it didn't seem out of place. It just, because like I said, like there were early kind of things on this seemed like it was a murder mystery, and they even said there's some trivia I saw that like Brad Pitt was going to play a detective and something like that. So like I have no idea what kind of iterations this went through. And there's even some trivia, and I don't know if it's true. It said like this was a book he was writing, and then at some point he thought it would be better as a screenplay, and then turned it into a movie. But also Quentin Tarantino says a lot of things.
Yeah, like he's going to make a Star Wars movie, and
he's going to make he wrote a Star Trek script.
Movie.
He was, he's going to make that Vega Brothers movie. He's going to make a Kill Bill 3. He says a lot of things.
Yeah, it's fun though. Who knows? He might calm down. He got married last year. So.
Oh, he did? Okay.
Yeah, he married some Israeli girl, like a singer. Yeah, The Hateful Eight. Now, that one wasn't really revisionist.
No, that was just kind of like an Agatha Christie Western movie.
Yeah, that was more of his.
Yeah, that was something I was going to point out. Like he's made 2 Westerns in a row, and then this movie like has Westerns in it. So maybe he's getting out of his Western kick for a while. See what his next movie is.
Yep.
See what his next movie is in 2023.
Yeah. Yeah. What's his? Was he a movie every 3 years?
Usually it's like every 4 years.
4 years.
That's what Kubrick usually did, but we can actually just look at his filmography and see.
Yeah, see if that's true.
Because that seems to be like the every 4-year thing. That's what Quentin did.
Yeah, that would make sense because his next one would be his 10th one, and that'd be his last one, and he'd be 60 then.
Director. So here we got Reservoir Dogs 92, And then Pulp Fiction in 94, so that's 2 years. You got Jackie Brown in 97, so that's 3 years from there. And then Kill Bill's next, which that I didn't know that. In 2003, that's 6 years later. Then that's 2 movies, or as he says, 1 movie.
Yeah.
And then 3 years later, he did Death Proof. And then 2 years later, he did Inglourious Bastards. And then 3 years later, he did Django Unchained. And 3 years later, he did Hateful Eight. So I guess, yeah, it's like 2 or 3 years between movies.
Okay.
Well, 4 years between this and Hateful Eight and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Okay. Yeah, this one took a little longer.
Yeah. He probably had to wait for, like, schedules to open up and shit like that, or money to come through. Because, yeah, this is a $100 million movie. It doesn't necessarily look like a $100 million movie, but...
I believe I read somewhere, I think it was actually that they, like, used a lot of old lenses to make this movie, like, deliberately.
Yeah, probably.
Like, a lot of old lenses and stuff like that. And,
I mean, it's still shot on 35mm movies. So that's what Quentin Tarantino still likes to shoot on film, so...
Yeah. And they wanted to give it that, like, burnished look that the 60s had. Because that's when, the 60s was when you went from, everything was black and white, and everything's in color. But we talked about, like, all the different color process. You talked about all the different color processes that film initially had, and where it was going, so.
Yeah, I don't know, this wasn't really shot with, like, Technicolor or anything like that, but... I didn't take notice of the lens because I was so if you think of Sergio Leone, so he did Once Upon a Time in the West, and he also did a movie called Once Upon a Time in America, which that had Robert De Niro in it. I've only seen West, which that's good, but West used spherical lenses, so
okay.
I'm wondering if these spherical lenses here or not. I didn't really take notice. The thing about spherical lenses is that they can keep things in the foreground and background in deep focus at the same time. That's like the advantage of spherical lens. But I didn't necessarily take notice of that here. But
Yeah, more what I noticed. This was just the look of everything. I'm not an expert on cameras and film technique and stuff.
no,
I just noticed how it's like, oh yeah, this looks like this is what because like I don't know if you remember Grandma's house in Iowa. Like, it was almost a time capsule of the 60s. It kind of was in an era and of a time, and everything had kind of that color palette and that look, and it's like, oh yeah, this movie reminds me of, like, yeah, this is what Grandma's house was like in the 80s. Like, it was kind of that style of furniture. And
now was that poster he had in his driveway? Was that supposed to be like some weird, like, billboard of him in something he was in?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, because like it looks like Jack Nicholson in the scene where he's like busting through the door with the axe, but I think it's supposed to be Leonardo DiCaprio, a depiction of Leonardo DiCaprio in some movie within this universe.
yeah, it was something like that.
And it's just like held up by cinder blocks and some wood.
Basically means this is my parking space.
Yeah. Yeah, like somebody made a joke about how how fancifully they depicted 60s Hollywood, because you can actually, like, drive a car and get somewhere.
Yeah, that was the thing. Like all those freeways looked remarkably free and open, and like he could drive like a maniac. And it's like, you can't do that anymore because there's like 25 million more people live there now that they did. Yeah, it's a good movie. I enjoyed it. It's a low-key movie. I mean,
Yeah.
and then it kind of wakes you up at the end. It's like, oh, time to come out of your trance. Here we go. Yeah, check it out. And that's all I have for this week.
All right.
This week for the American Greed Factory podcast, this is Nathan.
This is Colin. Goodbye, America.